Hey peoples, Nicholas on film. Today I'm talking about Apollo 10 and a half, A Space Age Childhood. Came out 2022. Surprisingly, I just found out about it today, and I was trying to find something worthy of giving my thoughts on, and this being a Richard Linklater movie, and his previous animated efforts being Waking Life, which is a masterpiece from the 90s, and A Scanner Darkly, an interpretation of a famous sci-fi novel, lots of name actors, and now Space Age, Apollo 10 and a half, Space Age Childhood, a creative animated rotoscope version of life for a child growing up in one of the most exciting eras in recent American history. So the movie starts out with a more generalized animation versus in his previous efforts. There's a lot more, like, I guess proper wording would be like trippy elements, where there's lots of like squiggly lines and blurring going on. This time, however, it's more straightforward, but it's still fairly obvious that it's actually human beings being animated. But it fits the source material, this being children, and an idyllic, somewhat childhood. I mean, nothing horrible tends to happen. And on top of that, there's an entire race to the moon going on just in their backyard, basically, which they happen to see most of the time on the TV. But we got Jack Black as an adult narrating it, kind of like in The Wonder Years, if you've ever seen that show. He's like narrating his childhood, and you're watching the childhood with his adult voice, reminiscing about it, basically. And it's got a lot going for it. It's about an hour and 37 minutes long, and it feels longer, but not in a bad way. Our main character, his name is Stan. He's played by Milo Coy as a child. Jack Black plays the grown-up Stan. We hear his voice. Lee Eddy plays mom. Bill Wise as dad. Natalie Lamoureux as Vicky. This is probably one of his sisters. Josh Wiggins as Steve, his brother. He's got multiple sisters going on. Jessica Brian Cohen as Jaina, and Sam Chipman as Greg. Can't quite remember who that was in the movie. And Danielle Guilbeault as Stephanie. So most of those are family members. The movie starts off with describing his life on the playground and how things were different back then. They were a lot more strict, and punishment was more severe from the elders. And then it kind of cuts quickly to him talking about his being whisked off of the playground and into the bases of NASA for a secret mission where he alone will be one of the first children, I guess, boys on the moon. And then he gets sick on one of the rides or one of the testing tutorials and vomits, and then the camera pauses, and then Jack Black whisks us right back to his childhood, and we spend a large portion of the movie just going over that era and lots of music and how things were different back then, and just lots of joy. It seemed like such a pleasant way to be growing up compared to some of the more negative alternatives that we've seen on the news and possibly experienced real life these days. So it's great that Richard Linklater was able to capture it in this colorful style of his. So yeah, thinking about it and looking back, I'm like, this movie's basically like a giant love letter to Texas, and Richard Linklater is probably growing up there and centering his film dome over there in Austin. So it's interesting because it's kind of, I always tell people it seems like another country in and of itself. So he's giving this great glimpse into all of these achievements they do over there. It's easy to forget when you're on, say, the West Coast, or if you're on the East Coast probably too, that all these magnificent things took place there previously. So he's as a filmmaker, that's one of the best things they can do is, if it's not happening right now, then kind of focus on a time where things were happening and just like get it right and go into extreme detail, go for broke. especially if it's required, and that's what it seems like he did this time. I'm happy that I was able to catch it. Going over the synopsis privately here, I'm just reminded, having just watched it, just how jam-packed this movie really is. That's why I was saying, I might have mentioned that it's only an hour and 37 minutes, but it feels a lot longer, but not in a bad way. And it's just like, I feel like it's almost, I don't know if it's an attack, but it's just like a reaction to like this new internet cancel culture age we live in, where life seems to take place like behind screens, big and small, versus this era. It seems like there's a much healthier balance for children growing up in terms of what's on the screen, what they're viewing, and what's happening in real life, and doing actually real things. And it's really accurate, just like having grown up before like the cell phone age personally, and then hearing stories of what it was like even before then, because there were complaints about us even because of our access to like new technologies, which was like unheard of to previous generations. So it's like, kind of a reminder, sometimes it's good to go back and maybe that things were better before. And also there's the hope. There's wars and fighting and disasters, but it's like NASA was the heroes. And it's interesting to see a movie where the heroes aren't just like people fighting each other. It's like people wanting to achieve something like never achieved before, and like literally doing that. So it's a really great movie to focus on, especially with the artistic style chosen this time around, which he's done a good job of getting it right before, and it's just gotten even better now. They don't hold back, like just reminiscing about like all the great board games, which when lumped all together are just like whoa, basically. Obviously there were like bad ones too, but there's only so much time in the movie and it focuses on the good ones, and it's just amazing how many memorable ones there are. Then it goes to like the TV shows and like different shows at night. There's only 3 channels, and then their introduction of color TV to the household, and the bonding experience that everyone had. And they kind of fight over the channels, what shows they want to watch, not that they had too much options like they do today, or they could just watch on their phone or whatever. It's like there's just one TV, so everyone had to gather around kind of like a campfire. And it's like amazing just seeing all these shows, like such classics, just lumped on the screen all at once, and then kind of focused one at a time. And we see like bits and pieces of talk shows and famous news anchors that are ingrained in her memory, and presidential speeches and moments. And then the movies is what I like, being a movie person. So it's like they go over these like movies, the like, Countdown was a Robert Altman movie, which I just recently was remembering, and they like focus on it like in this movie, which obviously applies to like the actual goings on in the movie itself. And they had another It, like before the Stephen King one, and then the Frozen Empire or something, like some scary movie about a golem. Or no, that was the It one. It was like a golem creature. They put like a bug in his mouth that comes to life. So it's like they talk about Raquel Welch and her 3 best movies, 1 Million Years BC, and the Fantastic Voyage, and then there's another one that I haven't seen. It's giving me ideas of other things to watch. So I mean, I'm feeling like it's like this is the movie that wants to be seen. So like the more the merrier, and I feel like it'd be like really eye-opening for a lot of younger generations, because it's like they hear about this and they kind of yawn and roll their eyes, but it's like this kind of totally captures that. It's just like I could see a young person saying, wait, I'm missing out on something, something's a little off here, we need to fix things, before it's too late. So yeah, they go into the whole like prank call era, because this is when phones were big. They even go into the touch tone, like they went from dial phones to touch tone, and the kids are sitting around and they always come up with something to do, and they learn how to make music to touch tone, and they accidentally end up prank calling people while doing that. and they got methods for like combating the prank callers. Like first they're the prank callers, and then they're the ones being prank called. Yeah, it's got this ear-piercing whistle and supposedly overkill. So we do all that, and then it just goes back to like Stanley's mission again. It's like extremely thorough, and it's like it makes you feel like you know exactly how they achieved this whole moon thing going on, like the underwater testing, like to simulate being in outer space. An lunar landing training vehicle, LLTV, which is has to be operated like a robot type deal, and just all the different warning calls, and communications back and forth, and alarms, and when to abort and when not to. And so by the time the family's sitting down and watching the real moon landing, it's like, oh, we already went through that. It's like we already simulated that, so now it's just a matter of watching and waiting. And it's extremely accurate, I think, just like the whole having to have lots of patience, and some people not being able to sit all the way through it and just being there for like the first step, you know, but the whole long drawn out process of getting back to Earth, you know, is only the father, you know, working for the company can sit through all that, you know. So it's for anyone who's heard those stories of the older generations, that's basically the gist of it. And then the movie concludes, I don't want to like spoil anything, but it has like some little blurbs about all the numbers involved. And in total, only 12 men have ever walked on the moon. According to this movie, secretly Stanley was 13, him being a boy when he did it. So it's like a kind of rewriting history in a way, but just kind of in a magical fashion, which only this type of special kind of animation can achieve. Just like bits and pieces that I remember from the movie, like Baskin Robbins, just so many things like the flavors, and the older brother who drives only wanting vanilla, and it just drives the sister crazy because she's like, we got 32 flavors, and every day for forever, all you ever want is vanilla. And his little brother being weirded out, but at the same time admiring his brother's will and consistency, and not being drawn by all the exotic flavors or being seduced by them. So it's got something to say for his character. So then we go there, and then we go to the beaches and just like talk about oil spills and washing oil off your feet with alcohol or with gasoline. Just like so many moments are just captured. Not to mention like on TV, like the celebrities like commenting and about the space program and whether it's worth it, and are we wasting money? Should we be spending this on helping the poor? But I mean, it's giving people hope. So it's always that battle between how money is spent. Money is just like, it's an object, it's a creation of man, but at the same time, you need to use it wisely as well. So thankfully they did land on the moon, because I'm sure that in history it wouldn't have looked so well if they didn't achieve what they set out to do. Other bits going through my memory, it's like I said, there's so much, like the Astrodome baseball, and they invent AstroTurf, like grass that doesn't need to be mowed. Some of the baseball players whining that it's like playing on concrete. But it's like, I never knew that the term AstroTurf came because it was first used in the Astrodome. And then the first animated displays on the screens, which is like something we take for granted now. And now we got whole like giant movie theater screens in the back of the surrounding stadiums. But back then it was like a big deal just to have some lights putting on a little show with animated characters. And then they go to the drive-in, and it's like how the kids entertain themselves while the parents are sitting in the car. They just wander around. They're like, when the brake lights are blinking, it means someone's making out, so they're always looking for those, trying to peek into the cars. And I just loved how like the movies were highlighted in TV shows, which were like artistic reflections on the goings on of the times that the characters are experiencing, and chosen wisely, and probably like going back into people's memory banks, the ones that stand out, that made the biggest impression, are the more accurate ones. The movie just does, it's just this kind of revolving slideshow of just these like magnificent moments. I mean, if there's something to criticize about it, it's like it almost makes everything seem too rosy. And I mean, there's broken bones and spankings and stuff, so there's that. But at the same time, it's just like it makes you wish that childhood was forever, you know? So, I mean, that's the magic of film, that we can recreate it. And then there's like a little bit of sibling rivalry. The main thing is Stanley's the youngest, and the mom supposedly took some contraceptives but didn't tell the church because she doesn't want to be deemed morally depraved or whatever. But then they say the neighbors don't take the pills, and they're just still spitting out kids left and right. And like the Stanley family already has like 7 kids as is. And the kids joke that the parents filmed the kids, a lot of home movies, but by the time Stanley came around, they kind of got tired of it. Sort of like, they joke that he's always either in the background or not in them at all when they're rewatching them. So then they come up with this thing, they try to tease him that he was adopted. That's why he's not in the movies as much. And that the parents picked him up in an orphanage and brought him there, and he tells them to shush. So it's like slight teasing moments. So I mean, I like how there's not a whole lot of bullying. It seems like the only bullying is like the authoritarian adult figures, which maybe it was accurate at the time. If you're always running from them, it's like maybe the kids were like good at getting along better because it's like they already had to deal with enough spankings and whatnot. So it'd be interesting to kind of see what's accurate and what's not accurate, considering how much is packed into this. I'm sure there could be cases made either for or against how realistic some of the things are, but for the most part I think it's leaning toward the majority of it being accurate, just having grown up in America and heard lots of stories myself. That's my thoughts on Apollo 10.5, Space Age Childhood. Wonderful movie. Glad that I realized that it even existed. It's a kind of like a trilogy, completes a trilogy. Wouldn't mind being more than a trilogy in the future, but for now, this is from the 90s and 2000 to 2022. This one's geared more towards remembering another era, and it's quite enthralling in its ability to capture so many moments and idiosyncrasies. Let me see that if I can say that. Idiosyncrasy, idiosyncrasy, something like that. Idiosyncrasies of the time and the different generations, the grandparents, the parents, the children, and then all of this going on with the space age and subplot involving our main character, voiced by the adult Jack Black, actually being directly involved in the space race and achieving something monumental, as long as it wasn't a dream. Everything kind of seems a bit dreamy with the animation techniques, so maybe it's up for debate. So if you like my thoughts on the movie, click like, and if you like my other reviews here, click subscribe. Until next time, it's Nicholas on Film. Over and out.
This is a covert operation. That means it does not exist. No one can know about this. Not your parents, not your brothers, not your sisters. No one.
3, 2, 1.
T-minus 60 seconds and counting.
Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Stan, are you ready?
1.
Ready.
Liftoff.
Apollo 10.5, this is Houston, do you read?